Como les decía, nueva conferencia, en este caso desde Europa, desde Finlandia. Está presentada por Local Bitcoins, sponsor Platinum de este evento, del Blockchain Summit Global. Y vamos a recibir a Vladislav Alimpiev, él es Head of Business Development. Local Bitcoins es uno de los mercados de criptomonedas más grandes del mundo, una compañía que opera a nivel global. Y voy a hacer una pequeña introducción de Vladislav para aquellos que nos están viendo desde todo el mundo. Today we have the presence of Vladislav Alimpiev. Welcome from Finland. He is Head of Business Development for Local Bitcoins, one of the largest cryptocurrency marketplaces in the world. Local Bitcoins is the company that is operating globally, where people from different countries can exchange their local currency to bitcoins using a secure escrow system. Vladislav has a Bachelor of Business Administration degree from Helsinki Metropolia University of Applied Sciences and is currently completing a Master of Business Administration degree from the Arcata University of Applied Sciences. So we have here one of our organizers that is going to talk with you. So I'm just telling you welcome. Bueno, los dejo conversando a ustedes. Esto de hablar un poco en inglés y en español, un poco para el público en inglés, un poco para el público en español.
Hey Vlad, how are you? We are honored to have you here.
Yes, hi. I'm really super excited to be here. I'm very excited to be taking part in Blockchain Summit Global. So thank you guys for having me.
No, thank you again. You're more than welcome. We hope that next year you can come here to stage and share here with us. So I don't want to take any more time from you, so please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, for sure. It would have been amazing to be able to come to Montevideo and give this live. But, you know, for the lack of better possibilities, I think this is cool. But yeah, let me get started. And let me start by saying that it is truly a pleasure to speak at Blockchain Summit Global because for us, Latin America is always in our thoughts, and it is really so important for us because we see big things are happening in Latin America. Big things are happening in Latin America in its fintech industry. So that's why it's so great that Local Bitcoins and Blockchain Summit Global were able to start this partnership. I have already been briefly introduced. So I am Head of Business Development at Local Bitcoins, been with the company since 2019. So not gonna dwell much into that, but do please, guys, you see my social media handles. If you have any kind of feedback, or if you just wanna connect with me, or just, you know, ask me anything, like, please do engage in social media, as I'm always happy to receive new connections. And if you have some kind of questions, then after the presentation that you come up with then later, then do, you know, just reach out. I mean, I'm happy when people reach out because we like to hear from our community and from the blockchain community at large. Now, today I'm going to talk about the global regulatory landscape of the cryptocurrency industry. But I'd like to start off a little bit by introducing what Local Bitcoins is and why we know some stuff about, you know, regulation and this kind of regulatory landscape. What really, you know, gives us that knowledge. And I'll also share a little bit about the lessons we learned when we transitioned from being previously a non-regulated entity to becoming a regulated entity. So hopefully for some people, maybe down the line, some of these lessons will prove useful. Now, back to the topic. So Local Bitcoins is the world's oldest and one of the world's largest Bitcoin marketplaces. Now, let me just quickly give you a couple of numbers about Local Bitcoins and what it is today. Like mentioned, we are a company based here in Helsinki, Finland, from where I am talking to you. I'm talking from our headquarters, so quite cool to be able to speak to an audience from all over the world here. We are perhaps best 10,000 kilometers apart from the studio or something, Helsinki. So cool stuff, cool modern technology. Our company is on a mission to be bringing Bitcoin everywhere. And if I just give you a quick rundown, a couple of numbers, is we have a total of 8 million customers. And not only that, but we always, every day we do get many more. We have roughly 3,000 new customers joining every day. When we look at the last year, $2 billion US dollars worth of $2 billion US dollars worth of trade volume was exchanged on our platform. And we have 80 plus employees at the moment. Not sure of the exact figure. It keeps on fluctuating all the time. And the company is really now growing in a very exciting way, exciting direction. When I joined just 2.5 years ago, it was less than half of what the size of the company is now. And one thing I actually personally love about working here is, Finland, it's like known for a lot of things. For example, beautiful nature, good design, saunas, etc., etc. But it's not really known to be a home of many multinational companies. But we happen to be one of those, even though we're just 80 plus people with 30 plus different nationalities. So I'd say that's pretty cool. Not maybe every day what happens in Finland. Last but not least, Local Bitcoins actually very happy to now just be finishing up final touches of our mobile application. So next week, our mobile app's available on App Store and Google Play Store. And now let me talk about our history. And when I talk about our history, there will be one very pivotal moment about which we'll then talk more in detail. That's the lessons we learned from regulation. So our company is actually very old by crypto and blockchain industry standards. We're almost a decade old. Next year, we will be celebrating our 10th birthday. Very few companies in this industry are in that kind of a state where they have, been able to survive. I mean, we live in the industry where, a lot of different things happen. So originally, Local Bitcoins was founded 2012 by Jeremias Kangas. When it was just founded, it was simply like what we are now is we are a marketplace, but we have so-called escrows. So we facilitate all the trades. When Local Bitcoin started, it was basically just a list of ads. So people could, essentially just list their ads. There was no really elaborate algorithm, like there was no business. It was just like simply a list, like a marketplace where people could come list their ads. But it quickly became popular. There was a demand for that new, fascinating at that point, very new thing called Bitcoin. So there was interest in that. There was a demand for that, it became lucrative and it turned into a business. And escrow protection was introduced. So every trade that takes place on Local Bitcoins is secured by escrows. So the Bitcoins are placed in this secure escrow account, and we make sure that both parties hold their end of the bargain. Now, if we fast forward to 2017, like the company has been gradually growing. When we look 2017, we've had record volumes due to the price spike, due to the previous bull market. Probably every other company in the industry has a similar story in that regard, that 2017 has been quite a pivotal year. For us, it's been pivotal to the extent that we've had to, for some time, even shut down new registrations because couldn't handle the amount of the new users. But I would say the most interesting time in the history of our company was 2019. Well, first of all, in 2019, the CEO, Sebastian Sonntag, became the new Chief Executive Officer of the company. We became registered as a virtual currency provider by the Finnish Financial Supervisory Authority. Now, I'm going to talk about the legal framework that brought that we had to become registered as a virtual currency provider in just a moment. And want to just finish up here by mentioning what is now, starting from last year after the registration period was over, is we are now on a path to new growth. So what we really concentrate on is the excellence of our service. We want to really deliver quality to our customers, and which actually falls largely on me, is the business development that we are looking to introduce new products to be able to serve our community better, because there's a lot of demand in this industry. Things are changing so much, and there is so much demand for new stuff. So that's one of our next focuses. Now, I want to talk to you guys about the lessons we learned from becoming a regulated entity. I want to talk about, when we became registered by the Finnish Financial Supervisory Authority, we had to undergo some changes. We had to introduce the anti-money laundering and know your customer policies globally. And it was, I mean, over 2 years ago. So we have learned actually quite a lot of interesting phenomena that happened due to these things. Well, first of all, one big thing that what happened is once you move from an unregulated entity to being regulated and supervised, and you start doing the anti-money laundering and KYC things, it increases security a lot. Let's be honest. Let me just actually say that again. If you do the regulation stuff, if you do the AML, if you do the KYC, it increases security by a lot. By complying with the regulations of one of the most strict financial authorities in the world, we're able to provide our users with the most secure marketplace. Fraud rates have dropped to virtually non-existent, and the number of bad actors on our platform has gone down substantially. And I'm gonna point out here that also if we look at, for example, disputes, so if, dispute is basically when, two parts of the trade, one of them maybe didn't hold up their end of the bargain, and they're just, they involve a moderator from our platform to make sure all goes smoothly. So those numbers per the number of trades, those numbers have really gone down also. So that's a big positive lesson, of course, that, you apply those, things get a lot better. Now, next one I actually want to talk, and this is actually a very interesting learning, and we're really we're really thinking a lot about this, and this is even something we're still struggling right now. I mean, we've grown so much in the last 2 years with this one, but doing KYC around the world is difficult. I mean, it's really difficult, because if you, for example, look at the standards of documents that exist here, where a company is based in the European Union, they are very different than if you're talking about the standards of documents that exist in, let's say, Africa, or exist in Latin America, then exist in Asia. Those standards are just different. The documents that prove someone's address are different. When you're talking, not everyone in every country has a passport or ID card. Documents are like this, those are really different documents. So you do need partners in order to be able to execute KYC globally. But now what we're learning to realize is a one-fit-all solution is just not viable. You cannot really have one provider that is going to satisfy all of your needs for the, for example, verification of a proof of address. So this is a difficult one, doing KYC around the world. It's just not an easy task, and one needs to work hard for one's community to be able to become gradually better and better at that. Last but not least, it's a very important topic in the cryptocurrency community for sure, is the idea between privacy and security. It is very important to be able to find a balance between people's fundamental right of privacy, but it is extremely important to be able to inhibit the illicit usage of a given service. In this case, for example, it would be local Bitcoins. It's very important for us to be able to get rid of the bad actors on the platform. Now, there's a big dilemma here. This is not an easy one. That's for sure not an easy one. I would say one of the best things one can do is working with the regulator and discussing these things with the regulator and trying to influence the upcoming legislation. I'd say that's a big one here. But also, that some people go quite far, I would say, on the privacy and quite disregarding security, and talking that it's all about freedom. I'd say from our point of view, when you're talking about freedom, shouldn't people also have the freedom to use a secure platform, a freedom to be on a safe marketplace that doesn't have these bad actors that want to do something? I think that's also a very important freedom, a freedom to be able to trade with people without any kind of fear. So I think that's also a very important one. Then that this is a difficult balance. The balance always must be found, but I would say that's another big lesson that we have learned on our end. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about what brought this, because I wanted to talk about the global cryptocurrency regulatory landscape. And I want to talk a bit about what brought the changes that made local Bitcoins the regulated entity, and what changes are coming in the near future. Now, if I'm being quite brief here, then when we look at the European Union at this stage, the regulations, a lot of the regulations that come from the Union, for example, from the European Commission, European Parliament, but then it becomes up to the member states to implement those regulations. So, for example, this was the case that in 2018, in the European Union, the anti-money laundering directive was amended and it entered into force. So it became fifth anti-money laundering directive. So what that happens is, normally you think, okay, so this is when the law changes. Actually, the deadline was given up to 10th of January 2020 to be able to implement the fifth anti-money laundering directive for all the states across the European Union. Now, Finland did that on 1st of November 2019. Earlier that year, it passed a law to implement fifth anti-money laundering directive in Finnish national law. And on 1st of November, it did become law. That's exactly when local Bitcoins became a registered entity. So by becoming a registered entity, it had to obviously prove that it has the necessary controls and safeguards in place to prevent illicit usage of the platform, such as money laundering or terrorism financing. Now, what's actually worth noting is, even though fifth anti-money laundering directive is in place, it still leaves a lot to the states of the European Union to interpret it. So, and that's actually an important one. A lot of the power is now in the regulation, even though, there is the fifth anti-money laundering directive that applies to all of the European Union, it doesn't, countries have implemented it differently. So I really want to actually point it out that, for example, getting registered is different process in different countries. The regulation is not at all uniform. Authorities, financial supervisory authorities of different countries, they don't even agree about how they treat, for example, stable coins. Is that considered touching the fiat funds, which require separate license? Is that considered virtual currency? So there is no consensus on any of these things. So that is because there hasn't been specifics in fifth anti-money laundering directive, and the big reason also is because there is no specific regulation that regulates the crypto assets, and that is where the upcoming regulation called Markets in Crypto Assets, or MiCA, comes in, or is going to come in. It hasn't yet come in. Now it's being worked by. The contents of it are I'm not going to go into the contents of that. I actually do know that there has been another speaker who is actually going to talk specifically about MiCA, but in essence, it's supposed to clarify a lot of these questions. It's supposed to unify the regulation across the European Union member states. And it is supposed to make a lot of other things, like making market manipulation in cryptocurrencies illegal, etc., etc. So if we look at the European Union, this is the framework of where we are at. Now, even though I said that we will be looking globally, I'm a little bit time limited, so we're going to have time only to look at Europe and to look at Latin America, because then I want to give a few remarks of what we hope from regulators as well. Latin America is a very exciting continent. In general, I would say Latin America is a lot more, let's say, free with regulation if you compare it to other continents. For example, if you compare it to Africa. But I think what's the most exciting thing about Latin America is it's, at the same time, it's home to a country, the first country in the world to make Bitcoin its legal tender. And at the same time, it's home to one of the countries to actually fully ban the usage of Bitcoin. So of course, in the first case, the country to make Bitcoin its legal tender, I'm talking about El Salvador, which is taking place in 1 week's time, in actually less than 1 week's time, 7th of September, today's 2nd. So in just 5 days, Bitcoin will become legal tender for the first time in history. And unsurprisingly, it is happening in Latin America. definitely unsurprisingly, considering the landscape, considering that people of Latin America are definitely making use of crypto, making use of Bitcoin and blockchain technologies. But yeah, it's interesting to see, definitely. And I'm here providing definitely a non-exhaustive map, and I'm not going to go and talk about every country's development. But for example, when we're looking about countries that are generally more like pro on the regulatory side, and countries maybe are more like against as far as crypto. If we're talking about pro, of course, I think probably every Latin American country is now looking in fascination to see what happens with El Salvador's experiment. Because I mean, obviously, let's be honest, no country has ever made Bitcoin legal tender. So it is going to be to some extent an experiment as to what is going to happen. But there is a lot of interest. There is an interest, for example, from lawmakers in Panama. There is interest in adopting more crypto-friendly legislation. There is interest from the lawmakers also in Uruguay, etc. So there is really definitely movement happening. And also I've put in this pro countries list, I've put also Venezuela, but I'm going to be honest, I mean, it's not really maybe that the government is really that kind of pro, but people of Venezuela do use Bitcoin and crypto. We know that because that's our most important market is actually Venezuela of our company. And their cryptocurrencies have a major use case. Now, when we are talking about the countries, like I've already mentioned that, for example, Bolivia has banned the usage of Bitcoin. Another country is Ecuador, where the Bitcoin is it hasn't gone as far, but also is the country which one can consider is not maybe as friendly to cryptocurrencies. Right, let me give a few remarks about what we hope for as the future vision as far as regulation goes. Now, want to point out that, of course, the crypto regulatory landscape, it's changing fast. It's important to stay up to date with what's happening. We as local Bitcoins, we embrace sensible regulation as we see it as key to eventual mass adoption of the blockchain technology and of cryptocurrencies. It's not possible to do that if it's not regulated. What we hope for is we want to see an equal playing field, regionally and as well as globally, because now we do live in the environment where unregulated companies are permitted to operate. They do have that kind of let's put it that way, unfair advantage in terms of they are able to facilitate some of the activities and make money of the undesired activities. So we are hoping to see a more equal playing field as time goes by. We also want to see a transparent and clearer regulation. Now we are still living in the times when we don't exactly know what maybe regulation means, what the regulators actually want. We hope indeed, in order to achieve that, we do hope to see the regulators who actually understand digital currency, understand the specifics of regulating them, because it's definitely important, because digital currencies are not like fiat currencies. They have big specifics in terms of how they work. And if regulators don't understand them, they are not able to pass sensible regulation. So that's what we hope for. Equal playing field, transparency, and clear regulation, and regulators who actually do their due diligence, understand that digital currencies. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I would really like to thank you all for listening. Didn't have time to go talk about too many places in the world, but I hope I have given you a brief introduction into, and given a few thoughts yes, to what maybe regulation is, what's upcoming, and what we hope for as far as the future. Also hope some of you who maybe haven't heard about our company now would find out, and do please, I've also shown my own contact details on the screen before, but do please also, of course, connect with local Bitcoins. You can see our email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and our blog here. So do please connect with us. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Again, Blockchain Summit Global.
Thank you too, Vladislav. On behalf of the members of the local Summit Global organization, we want to tell thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Teníamos a Vladislav desde Finlandia. Bueno, estas conferencias, ustedes saben, tenemos conferencias en inglés y conferencias en español para que lleguen a todo el público y por supuesto también que llegan desde diferentes partes del mundo.